Welcome to the Shunned podcast, where we expose religions that use shunning as a tool to control people. Some quick business before we get started. As you know by now, I offer one-on-one coaching to help people recover from life in these high control groups. I work to help people grieve the past, find themselves, and then find a life that they actually want, not just the one they were given. I'm actually offering something special, so if you want to work with me, now would be a good time. I'm actually offering pay what you want pricing. That's not something you see very often, but I want to work with more people. I want to try to help more people. So, when you look at it, traditional therapy locally is usually, $100 plus per session. Online therapy is usually $80 or more. I typically charge $50 for coaching, which most people find reasonable, but I'm actually letting you decide the price. So the minimum is actually $20, but you decide from there. And by doing so, I'm hoping that I can help more people. So if you're feeling unhappy or stuck, send me an email at shunnedpodcast@gmail.com or reach out through any of the websites that I have, whether it's shunnedpodcast.com, ex-JWhelp.com or whatever, and let's start working together. We already lost so much time in these groups. You can certainly do some healing alone, of course, but when we work together on things, we can often heal a lot faster. And, we can also process things together, challenge perspectives, get new tools, find ways of different ways of looking at things, find acceptance, kind of go through this grieving process together. And in the end, more and more people have been reaching out for help, and seeing people that I work with actually start to find their voice, to make big changes in their lives, to be who they've wanted to be, or to just be proud of who they are. That's the best feeling in the world. Speaking of seeing people become who they are, or be able to speak to who they've been, today we actually have another brave person that's reached out to tell their story as part of the process of healing. It can be very cathartic to share your story with other people, to feel seen, heard, validated. So let's go on a journey with today's guest. As you listen, look for the lessons, look for the ways that maybe your story relates, and maybe you can learn about what has worked for this person, or maybe what hasn't. Maybe it's something that you can pull into your own life. If you were never involved in these groups, I get emails from people that just listen because they find these stories interesting or they find them inspiring. So please help spread the word. These aren't just cult stories. These are human stories. So many of the things that were experienced by the guests of this show are found in other areas of life. So share these episodes and let's help shine a light on the human experience. What's really going on in this world? You never know who it might help. So without further ado, let's go ahead and meet today's guest.
My name is Ramil. I'm 43 years old. I was a Jehovah's Witness and I am shunned.
All right, Ramil. So how'd you become one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place? Were you born in?
Yeah, I was born in. My grandparents studied and were baptized, and they ended up raising their 8 children in it, and I think they all got baptized.
Oh, wow.
So they had 2 girls and 6 boys.
Yeah. Wow, that's a big family. So which of those kids was your relative? Your parent?
My mom.
Ah, your mom.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so she was always in it too. When it goes back a lot of generations, or if you've got family that's strong in it, it's usually all right? So
right.
So I assume that was pretty much it for you too, being born in. So being born into it, what did it mean to you to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and how did it make you see the world?
Well, since I was really young when we were going to meetings, I didn't really think too much about it. But I do know I was always scared of Armageddon. And my thinking was always, if you don't go to meetings, then you get destroyed. I didn't really think much about it. I just knew that we were always going to meetings, and the people who didn't go were bad, basically.
Yeah. And so it's more like you're just trying to save your own life and not be bad, right? I mean, that's a lot to put on a kid, isn't it?
Right.
So how did it make you? So then you saw the people in the world around you as just bad? Were they scary to you, or were you afraid of people on the outside?
I can't say I was really scared of them. I just always looked at them as they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses and they're going to die. That was just my thinking.
Yeah.
But like, as far as like our home life, we were like, to back up a little, I think my mom was what was it called when you're not reproved?
Oh,
She was reproved,
she was
I
reproved.
believe, because her and my dad had a one night stand.
Okay.
So I never met my dad.
Oh, wow.
And so she would go to the meetings because of my grandparents, I think. And at home, we were able to like watch basically anything. So we were watching like the holiday specials and, you know, the Smurfs and all that stuff that other people weren't allowed to. So I honestly, I didn't really have, as far as thinking everyone was evil, I didn't think like that.
Yeah.
I just always thought that they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses and they didn't go to meetings, so they were gonna die at Armageddon.
Yeah. So it's more a matter of life and death than
Right.
them necessarily being horrible people.
Right.
That's interesting. So let's get into a little bit about your childhood and what it was like at home. It's just kind of interesting that you were watching. I love that you mentioned Smurfs, by the way.
It's my favorite cartoon.
I loved it too when I was a kid. But you know, because of the
Right.
whole mythology of the Smurf that ran out of the Kingdom Hall, the demon possessed Smurf toy, which is just insane. But so you're going to meetings. You believe you have to do that basically to live. But how did you feel? Because I mean, you were watching Christmas specials or whatever, and things that maybe holiday shows. Did you feel bad about doing things like that?
No.
Huh.
It was a cartoon and we watched it. So. I think because my mom, you know, was a single parent, that was just like turn on the TV kind of thing. And I was our babysitter sometimes. But like we didn't have the Christmas tree or we didn't have the Halloween decorations. We didn't do all that. It was just we would watch. She would have us, not have us, but if a special came on, we'd watch it. And it was, I never really thought anything about it. I didn't believe in Christmas. I didn't believe in, you know, Santa Claus and all that. It was just like, yeah, watching a cartoon.
Gotcha. So it was just I mean, really, how seriously should you take any cartoon? You know, like that, you know, it's just an escape. Like you said, kind of your babysitter at home. So you just didn't identify with it. Anyway, did watching those things ever make you want to celebrate anything?
No,
No.
not to my knowledge. No.
Gotcha. Just wondering. So what was life like at home? You know, other than the entertainment, you know, you got to watch what you wanted pretty much. How was it, you know, being raised by a single mom? Did you all have a pretty good relationship? Was it a fun house, or was it a place that was hard to live in at times? Or, you know, how was it for you?
Yeah, it was a mix of all of that. It was my mom, my brother, and me.
Oh, okay.
And for the most part, being younger, because we're from Ohio, and we had my cousins. It was like 14 cousins that we had. And we all lived in the projects, but we were all around each other. So to me, when I was younger, it was fun. Like, I had a good time because I was always with my cousins. We would go over each other's houses and stuff. As far as, you know, my mom would have like where she would be stressed and we would have some kind of like issues like that, and we'd get spanked and all. But it wasn't like a horrible childhood.
Cool.
You know, I was, for the most part, I enjoyed my younger years.
Yeah, sounds like a good time with all your cousins and everybody around. I'm sure you all got to
Hmm.
play together and stuff.
And
Um,
they're also raised as witnesses, so we all went to the same Kingdom Hall. We were like all in the same school, so we were all very close.
oh, wow. That would have been nice to have had so many other witnesses that you knew. Well, I don't know. It could be nice and it could also cause problems, I guess. But to have other witnesses in your school that you knew and were not only friends with but related to.
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
I don't remember calling. Uh, it was fine. Yeah,
okay.
like I think they felt the same. I don't remember as far as with my cousins ever talking about Jehovah or,
Hmm.
we just played or we'd watch cartoons together, but we never really got into discussions about Jehovah or anything.
Right. Was your family, as far as growing up in your home, were you all a family that was expected? Like, were you big on family study, or were you all the ones who always had to be at all the meetings or out in service or commenting? Was there a lot of pressure to perform at all, or were you all just pretty chill about the whole thing?
Yeah, we were very chill about it. My grandparents were, like I said, they were the ones that embraced everything.
Yeah.
Um, we went to all the meetings, we went to the conventions and the assemblies, but my mom would be the one that would let us draw, or I'd be on the floor sleeping kind of thing. And if I do answer, it'd be like, Jehovah, and that's about it. But as far as studying and all of that, no, we didn't do that.
Man, you were that kid that I used to see that got to draw or sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
You were the envy of a lot of other kids, probably, in ways. So, all right. So that's kind of how, well, let's talk about that then at the meetings and such at the Kingdom Hall. What was life like there for you? You obviously had at least some people because you related to them that were your friends. Did you have
Mhm.
other friends? Did you like going to the Kingdom Hall at all, or going out in service, or doing any of that stuff?
I don't remember us going out in service.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah, that was my grandparents, I guess, would go out in service. I don't remember ever going in service when I was younger.
Wow.
Um, I had friends. I know I had a neighbor, and they had a son my age, and he would come over and sleep over, and I would go to his house and sleep over. And there was another boy that we hung out with, and we all, when we go to the halls, sometimes our parents will let us sit with each other.
Yeah.
Um, did I like going to the halls? No, I hated it. I hated dressing up, I think, more than anything. I
Oh,
hated
really?
that. But it just felt like something we did. I wasn't like, I didn't really think too much about it. It was just something that I just knew we did, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was normal for you, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
This, my name's Ramil. This is what I do. I go sleep on the floor of a Kingdom Hall. That's funny. So you all, yeah, if you weren't even going out in service, did you have, um, so you went to, did you go to regular public school?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so how was school for you? Were you able to make friends there, and kind of fit in, or was that a hard place for you because you had to be different?
It wasn't too hard. Like I remember every first day of school, my mom would come with this pamphlet
Oh,
for the
yeah.
teacher, and that they would explain, our beliefs and all. And we wouldn't, salute the flag, of course, or when there's birthday parties, we usually, I think, do something else. We wouldn't celebrate the birthdays. If there's a Christmas or some kind of project, they would have me do something else. But I wasn't like bullied or anything, or I had friends.
I bet it.
Yeah, well, it just felt normal to me, I guess.
Yeah, I was say I bet it helped that you didn't have that view that, you know, evil worldly people to be afraid of or
Right.
whatever, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
you were also maybe watching some of the popular entertainment, so you could at least talk to people about it, you know, kind of fit in that way. And then um, you, although you were doing the things that you were supposed to do because that's what you did, as far as going to the meetings and stuff, it doesn't sound like it was something that you like. Would you say, did you really fully buy into it at that time?
No.
Yeah.
Or
So
well, I
wondering.
believed. If you mean, did I believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally believe that everybody was gonna get destroyed and there's an Armageddon. Like I would be scared about Armageddon. Like I would have nightmares about it. But
But that was
I
primarily what you believed in, was just the
right
life or death
is
aspect, and not
exactly.
like how
Yeah.
you were supposed to see everybody and judge everybody and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right. Hmm.
So you gotta kind of just bought the highlight of the day, which is that there's some paradise coming, and if you do what we tell you, you can survive into the paradise, and if you don't, you're gonna
Hmm.
die, right?
Right.
Gotcha.
That was as far as I saw it.
So you weren't deeply buying into everything then.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
So how did things go for you as, so, you know, you're a kid, you start going into your teenage years. I know sometimes there can be a lot of pressure to get baptized, but if your family wasn't super, you know, strong in the truth or whatever, as far as, you know, being deep in, maybe there wasn't. So how did life go for you as you went into your teenage years, started getting a little older?
Well, it was a 1985.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me go back a little.
Sure.
My grandparents ended up moving to California
Okay.
because that's where my grandfather wanted to retire. And I had another uncle that came up to California as well. So it was like 1985. I remember we ended up moving up there with our grandparents, with my mom and my brother. And we moved up with my grandparents because my mom was looking for a job in a better place for us. And Ohio didn't really have much jobs where we were living.
Okay.
So when we moved up there, I was like 8 or 9 ish, and we lived with our grandparents in like a very small 1 bedroom apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we were like, you know, the Kingdom Hall every meeting. And I still don't remember going to service much, but I think every blue moon we'd go with my grandparents.
So because
And
because your grandparents were the ones that were more into the whole, you know, being a
yeah,
witness thing, and you all moved with them, that just by default kind of got you involved a little bit more.
yes,
Okay.
and my grandfather was an elder.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah.
Yeah. He
So
better be, a little deeper in if he's an elder.
yeah. So we're at all the meetings, and I hated it. Like, and this is the age where you can't sleep on the floor anymore.
Yeah.
Color. So yeah, I hated the meetings. And then coming from Ohio and being poor, you know, we had the like Goodwill clothing, and so going to school in California was like a big change, and that's where a lot of kids started making fun of me.
Mm.
Um, for my clothing, my voice, I had a high pitched voice, and my mom like having me and my brother wear afros for some reason. So we would be made fun of like constantly. Well, I can't talk for my brother, but for myself, I was made fun of. I was called a girl. I was called Michael Jackson. I was, you know, I was never beat up or nothing by kids, but I was just, I hated it. Like I miss my cousins and I miss my family in Ohio, and it was just like, I guess that's where my depression started building.
Sure. That's tough.
Um, yeah. Uh, so yeah, it was not good when we first caught up here.
No. So when you all moved, so you left all those cousins behind?
Yes, uh huh.
Oh wow, that would be tough.
Yeah.
So you lost your friends, you lost the place you knew.
Hmm.
You're in a new place, and it sounds like you're not fitting in very well. Um, I gotta ask if if you had were you made fun of for your voice and your clothes and your afro or whatever when you were in Ohio, or did that just start when you were in California?
That was in California. I honestly I don't have any recollection of being made fun of for any of those things in Ohio.
Isn't that weird? I mean, it's not like you changed, right? Like that
Right.
fast. You just
Hmm.
moved to a different place. So, sometimes when you move to a new place, well, and kids are pretty cruel anyway. If you're the new kid on the block, so to speak, you get singled out, and it can be really
Right.
tough and very unfair.
Right.
Um,
And that area in Ohio we were in was kind of a poor area.
yeah,
So I feel like a lot of kids were like the same as us, you know?
yeah,
And in California, I mean, we weren't like in a rich area or nothing, but they were more, you know, in the current styles, I think. And we just kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, me and my brother. So,
yeah. I get it. I mean, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, so not necessarily style capital of the world, but but my clothes all came from the DAV and Goodwill and places, other thrift stores, because that's
mhm.
what we could afford, and I got made fun of relentlessly for that. It, with the school that I went to, and it wasn't in a rich place either. So, it was, I guess I went to school that was in a little bit wealthier end of town than where I grew up, which made me stand out. So,
Mhm.
um, for all the wrong reasons. And yeah, it can be really tough, and it's easy to get depressed, when your circumstances have changed so much, and you're probably missing a lot. Was there? So how did that affect you when you started getting depressed?
Uh, I I guess I more just kept to myself.
Just isolated?
Yeah, like I didn't. Of course, I was scared to speak. I also wasn't very good in school, so that didn't help.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Just makes you
yeah,
feel
it
more
just
alone.
right. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. So where did things go from there when you're in this new place, you're not fitting in, you're trying, but there's only so much you can do. You're being made fun of for things you can't help, like your voice, like what
Hmm.
are you supposed to do about that? Right.
Right.
So how did things kind of go from there?
So we were in that place for probably a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then my grandparents and mom ended up finding a two-bedroom house. I'm sorry, two-story house.
Mm-hmm.
So we went there, we moved there, and that was a little better. The school was right across the street. And, I had like one or two good friends. So I wasn't miserable. uh, but yeah, we had this new house. My mom stayed downstairs, and my grandparents stayed upstairs because they had two bedrooms upstairs and one bedroom downstairs. And then we'd have our book study in the house, so we did that. Um, Things were a little better for a few years, and then my mom met this lady and her friend, and they ended up hanging out. And long story short, she was not a good influence, and my mom wanted her to stay with her in like her area, like a roommate kind of thing, and my grandmother didn't want that. So they got into an argument, and my mom ended up moving out, and we were kind of left there.
Oh, so your
And
mom moved out on her own.
hmm
Did
well,
she?
she moved in with this lady,
Okay, so
kind of
she ended
thing,
up moving in with that lady then. Okay.
right? And she's like, she'll come back and get us, but we had a room and stuff, so she kind of left us with our grandparents.
Okay.
And so believe her and this lady ended up getting into kind of like drugs. Like, I don't know what kind of drugs, but they ended up getting into drugs. So we ended up, after a while, we went to stay with her, but she ended up putting us in foster care. So we went to foster care for like 6 months, and I was bullied and beat up there, like literally beat up. Me and my brother were just constantly bullied, and uh, I'm kind of moving through this quick because there's really nothing to do with witnesses.
Oh, but it's
We
still
like
part of your
literally
story,
did.
so it's okay.
Yeah,
It's still part of your life. It doesn't have to just do with the witnesses. But I
right.
mean, that's tough. I mean, so why didn't your mom give you to her parents?
I don't know. I
Wow.
don't know.
So she put you in foster care instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were there for like 6 months, and so that was hard. Uh, the place had like mice and rats that would come out at night.
Oh.
So that got me this serious fear of mice and rats. Like I have a serious phobia with it because they would jump on your bed, and some kids got bit, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I guess she got herself cleaned up, and we ended up going back to her, and so it went to her, and when she would work, and she also got rid of this friend that she was with. And when she would go to work, our grandparents would babysit us, and so we would go back to meetings. It was again just hating it, and I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying attention to anything the meetings were talking about. But that's what that was their rules, that we would have to go to meetings with them.
Yeah. Like if you're gonna be with them, if you're gonna be with us, you got to go to the meetings, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what matters most.
Yeah.
Not having fun with your grandkids or anything else. We got to go to the meetings. Um, wow,
So
that's kind of just. I'm just trying to take that in. It's kind of that's a lot. Like that's a lot of change for a kid. Your
yeah.
mom moves out, then you end up back with your mom, then foster care, um, and then back again with your mom, and then being babysat with your grandparents, which throws you back into the world of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's just
hmm
a lot of transition for a kid. How were you doing through all this? Were you just kind of resigned to, whatever I got to do, I got
I
to
was
do?
a mess. Like mentally, I was a mess.
Well, sure.
Uh, I know when we were in the foster care, my mom, she would come, visit us and all. And when she leave, I'll just break down and start crying.
Yeah.
Or I'd be asking her, when is she gonna get us back or get us out of here? And she would be upset and starts crying and leave, and that would make me feel like shit. My brother would, he's like 2 years younger than me. I don't think I said that, but he would like leave, or him and another friend would go run off somewhere for 2 days, and the foster center would have to find them and stuff. It was a big mess. It was, yeah.
Yeah, that's heavy. That's heavy. Especially, so how old were you all at that time?
We were about, let's see, 11, 12 ish, 13,
Okay.
somewhere around that area.
Like
Probably like
kids
11,
don't
I think. Yeah.
let's say like kids don't have enough going on internally in their tween and teenage years.
Mm,
That's a rough time anyway. And man, I really feel for you there. I'm sorry you went through that. Obviously your mom had some problems there.
yeah.
Um,
So we go into middle school, I don't know, like 14 or 15 ish. And of course, more bullying. And this time it's like, I don't wear any kind of long hair, afro. I shave my head all the time. I try to dress as much as I can, but we can't afford much sometimes.
sure.
So I still would be bullied for that. And just, yeah, I felt alone in school. I wasn't doing very good in school. I ended up to where I was missing a lot, and I got in trouble for that. Um, and just depression was just getting really out of hand. So it was pretty bad.
Yeah,
And
that's tough.
I got to where I was getting panic attacks when I would be in public. So I was about the age of 16 or 17. So we're in a place now, like a home, and my mom's doing good. Like she's a bus driver in San Diego, and being with our grandparents are fine. We actually don't need to be babysat anymore, so we stayed at home with our mom. And when I'm going out in public, I get anxiety attacks, and going to school, I would get anxiety attacks. And so I ended up missing school and staying in the house for a year, and just suicidal, like constantly thinking about just killing myself. On top of that, I start to realize I'm gay. Like I kind of always known that. Since a young age, I've always was attracted to men, but being in a house for a year, I just started to realize, like, I think I'm gay. That's the first time I admitted it to myself.
Mm-hmm. Just wondering,
So,
is that when you started having the panic attacks? Was it because you realized that and you knew what it meant for the whole witness thing?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just wondering if they might have coincided together, because that's a lot of pressure.
Because we weren't going to meetings then, like whatsoever.
Right. I knew you had kind of at least believed in the, life and death portion of it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And, that it might have triggered some fear of the death portion of it with their, narrow-mindedness.
I didn't even know at that time about that.
Oh, really?
Like, I didn't know that they didn't like gays at that time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because, like I said, I never paid attention. So I just sat there. I would be daydreaming all the time, or if I wasn't, coloring or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never thought about that. The anxiety attacks was just because being in the house, of course, you start getting fatter. I started getting heavier, and even the doctors told my mom I was too heavy. So that's where going out in public, it just felt like I was being stared at or being made fun of. I know this is all in my head, but
well, yeah, I mean,
when you're young, that's what you think.
Yeah, and you've been isolated in your house for a year, so going out in public's going to be a pretty big task anyway. And then emerging, in a somewhat different body than you went into the house with, it's going to make you feel self-conscious. I mean, that's natural. It's hard enough. I think all of us, on some level, are going to feel some of the isolation some of the issues from isolation when COVID eventually lifts,
right,
and hopefully, and we all start to go back to some sense of community and socializing and stuff. Obviously, it's different, but it is hard to, if you're depressed. That's one of the things about depression is depression makes you want to isolate. Then you isolate, and then it becomes more anxiety inducing to be around other people. It's just a real catch-22 situation there. So I'm sorry you had to deal with that for you said it was a whole year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear other stories where people were homeschooled.
Right.
And I wanted to be homeschooled because I did not want to go to school, but for some reason we couldn't find homeschooling. I know my mom did look, but I don't know what happened with that. But so yeah, I ended up looking in the dictionary for depression. I don't know what made me see that seemed like I was having depression, but I looked it up and saw that I had all the symptoms. Mm-hmm. So I talked to my mom, and she took me to the therapist, and that's where I was diagnosed with clinical depression. So yeah, we were there, and me and my brother. My brother too was in the house, but he's he wasn't as messed up as I was. Uh, so about the age of 17, now my mom had another friend. It was a guy, but he was married, and him and his wife were moving to Oregon. So he convinced her to move us to Oregon. He was saying how it might be better for us. So we ended up moving to Oregon, and that's where she got me a psychiatrist, and I was given meds, so that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon was fine, I guess. But I actually started getting better there, so
You started feeling better?
yeah, oddly enough. The high school we went to literally had 5 black kids,
Mm-hmm.
and me and my brother were 2 of them. So there's like a lot of quiet racism in there. I know some people in my class would be neo-Nazis. I was called the N-word a couple times.
Mm.
But that's where I met my best friend, actually, or one of my best friends. And because I met him, and he was kind of a quiet guy, but me and him started hanging out a lot. And we would be walking everywhere. I would walk to his house. He stayed the night at my house, and we'd be walking around downtown at night. And I ended up losing like 50 pounds. I was feeling a whole lot better. My anxiety was a little less because of the medication, and my depression was, still had it, but not as bad.
Mm-hmm.
So things were going pretty good. It was actually going pretty good. And then out of the blue, for some odd reason, my brother decides he wants to study with Jehovah's Witnesses. And I don't know why. I guess he was reading the books, and he said that he started believing it was the truth. So he wanted to study. And so he called up the local congregation, and they sent over brothers, and they started studying with him. So he got baptized after like a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
My grandparents came down, and it was in Tacoma, Washington, where he got baptized. And I'm just like, it's not for me. I don't want to ever go back to meetings. So, he was going out in service and everything. And that's where I started, where I would ask him questions about it. Because, he was, changing, and things he liked, he all of a sudden didn't like anymore because he said they were bad and all. And that's where he told me how they, you can't be gay and be a Jehovah's Witness kind of thing. Or at least you can't be actively gay.
What was that moment like?
It didn't bother me because I didn't think I was ever going back. It was just like, oh well.
Okay.
I think it's, I think that was shitty to, I didn't get it, but he showed me in the Bible where it says, the whole men cannot lie with men thing.
Right.
So I took that as what it was, and
sure. So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so that's really tough for him to say that to you. I mean, did he say it to you like he was somehow trying to help you, or was he kind of condemning you with it?
I'm sorry. He didn't even know.
Oh, okay.
About me being gay. Yeah. No one knew that. I never told anyone that. I kept that to myself.
So it just happened to come up in the course of conversation somewhere.
I think I asked him about it or something.
Okay. All right.
Out of curiosity, but he didn't know about me, or my mom didn't know about me being gay or nothing.
Gotcha. Where was your mom at this time? So your brother starts studying and becomes one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Where was your mom? Was she still being a witness at all, or was she?
No, she wasn't, but she was very proud of him because she even started crying when he got baptized. And she told me that she still believes in Jehovah. She still believed Jehovah was helping us. Which, I mean, it seemed like, I can see how she would think that, because she was having a hard time finding a job there. like she wanted to be with the bus company there, and they weren't hiring, or they didn't hire her or something. So we were still like struggling, but somehow we were making it.
Mm.
And so she believed, Jehovah was helping us, and she said that she wants to get herself together and go back to the meetings.
Isn't it, isn't it amazing though how you can feel like Jehovah's helping you while everything is not going right? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, can't get a job, moving place to place, your kids are depressed and feeling really terrible, and you're moving, and um, if you were facing racism at school, I'm sure your mom was probably finding some of it in her own life as well. Especially if there weren't a lot of other Black people in the community, and the community was producing kids that were kind of neo Nazis or whatever you said. So I mean,
Yeah.
like, but it's just funny how sometimes, even when we feel really down, you can believe, because I think sometimes you want to believe there's got to be something else out there bigger than us, because helping us, because what else are we gonna do? We don't seem to be able to handle it on our own. So
Right.
that's tough.
Yeah. So as far as mentally and everything, because like I still had anxiety when I go out. Like I still couldn't like go out by myself unless I walked to school and back.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't get on a bus by myself, or I either had to have my mom or brother or my friend. So I was still like that. But things were going okay. And then because my mom wasn't finding much work, we ended up talking about it and thought maybe to move back to Ohio, because my uncle told her that the bus company was hiring down there. And I was like, oh, we can be back with our family and all. So we ended up moving back to Ohio.
Oh my goodness,
And
so much transition.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
And of course, leaving my friend, like I just broke down and started crying, because it's like we were so close. And we still, to this day, we keep in touch. So I mean, it's cool, but at that time it was hard. But we moved back to Ohio, and at this time I'm like 21. I just turned 21 in January, and so me and my brother were living with my aunts and cousins, and my mom was living like 20 miles away with an uncle and his family, because that's where the bus company was hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing that. I'm starting to get better as far as my anxiety, and I go and I found a job at Kmart as an overnight stalker. And so I got the job, and my brother got a job. My mom got a job as a bus driver, and we got our own place finally. So things were starting to look up again. And at my job, I would work from like, I think it was like 11 at night till 7 in the morning. And because I didn't want to catch a bus, I would walk like 5 miles to my house and then pass out, go to sleep. And so my mom would work drive the buses, and I was like 20 miles away, like I said. But she would come back home sometimes, because she worked a schedule called a split shift.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd work like 4 hours and then have like 2 or 3 hours off, and then 4 more hours. She'd go back and work 4 more hours. And so sometimes she'd stay for the 2 or 3 hours at my uncle's. Sometimes she'd come home. So this was like in August, and I just got home and went to sleep. And I woke up hearing my mom on the phone. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go say hi or whatever. And then I was like, I'll see her later. I'll see her when she comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go back to sleep. And that was probably like the biggest regret of my life. Because then we get a call later that she was in a serious car accident going back to work. And I guess from what a witness said who saw it on the freeway, a car T-boned her van, and it flipped over and threw her out the car window. And So we're taken up to the hospital by my cousins and uncles and all. And my mom is just like swollen, like bloodied, and like I've never seen her like that.
Yeah.
So of course, you know, it's like things were going good, and now it's like this, you know, this happens. And so it's a mess as far as me and my brother, you know, and he was going to meetings in Ohio. And so of course he had the congregation supporting him. My friend from Oregon, he knew my mom, and so he's calling me and just checking on me and stuff. But and not believing anything, I still did believe in Jehovah. I believed there was a God, but I didn't really, you know, want to deal with the whole going to meetings. I just took it as I'm gonna die. I'm just gonna have fun with my life. Whatever happens, happens. But I started praying, you know, because she was actually in a coma for like 2 weeks. And they said that if she did come out of it, she'd be brain dead. And I just didn't want to see my mom like that. So I prayed, and I was like to Jehovah, please, you know, if she can't be herself, just let her go to sleep. Because I don't want to see my mom like that.
Yeah.
And a couple of days later, they called us and said she died. So my grandparents come down, and they're having a memorial at the Kingdom Hall. And it's me, my grandparents, and then my brother. They're between us. And, you know, everyone in the hall, people I don't even know. So I don't know how they know my mom. You know, I don't know if they're there for my brother or what. But the brother is, you know, giving the talk, and he doesn't know her because she never went to the hall. And he's just talking to my brother and my grandparents. Like, he doesn't even look at me. And I remember just sitting there going, oh, just like, what, am I not her son? You know, he's totally ignoring me because what? I'm not a witness. I don't go to the meetings.
God, that's messed up.
Yeah. So he was talking to them, and, you know, she's going to come back into paradise and all this stuff. And I was just like pissed. I was just kind of sitting there like, you know, you don't even know her. And I don't even remember anything he said about her. You know how they go into their promotion for the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah, it's a sales pitch to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses and believe in the resurrection. It's not about the person who died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was hard, but
man, I'm sorry that happened. That's rough. That's a tough way to lose your mom. That's just, the whole thing is tough. That you know, then you're rushed into this witness scenario and treated like that too. It just adds. It's just, you know, I'm sure though that you on some level saw that your brother and grandparents had this community kind of rallying around them. Like, did that make you feel left out? I mean, aside from being angry at the way this brother was acting, did that make you feel in any way like you wanted to be a part of it or anything?
No.
Okay. I was just wondering. Okay.
Did it make me feel left out? Yeah. I saw like you said, how they rallied around him and all, but I still, no desire.
No desire.
We're getting there though.
I know it's coming at some point.
So I ended up, I didn't want to stay in Ohio because honestly, I wasn't liking it. Like, it wasn't the same. And my family, you know, they're all doing their own things and everything. They had their own families. None of them were witnesses anymore either, but except a couple of my aunts and cousins. My uncles. So I asked my grandparents if we can go live with them. And, you know, my brother talked about it, and they're like, yeah, of course, you know. So we go back to California to stay with my grandparents. And now I realize I have to grow up because I depended on my mom, of course. But of course,
how old were you At this time
At
when
this
your
time,
mom died and everything, how old were you?
21 still.
Okay,
Like it was
21.
literally in that year.
Oh
We
wow.
got
Okay.
there in January and she died in August
Okay.
of 1998. So I asked my grandfather, are you expecting me to go to meetings? And he's like, I would like you to, you know. And I'm like, nope. So I called my friend in Washington and I was like, hey, don't they have a Job Corps up there? And he's like, yeah. So I used his address and asked my grandfather paid for me to go to Washington, and I joined Job Corps because I felt like I needed to at least learn a trade. You know, I wasn't good in school, so I didn't want to do college. So I went to Job Corps to learn culinary arts.
Mm.
So I was up there 3 or 4 months, and the insurance for my mom came through. And since I was the oldest, I needed to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really because I couldn't afford medication, so I was off of that. So the depression, the suicidal thoughts, everything was just 10 times worse up there.
Mm.
And missing my grandparents and my brother. And even though I made like a lot of friends up there, like I honestly liked being up there, but I was missing my family. So this kind of gave me a way out, like just go back, whatever. So I went back to take care of this so me and my brother could get the insurance from my mom's death. And by this time, they got an apartment where it was 2 bedrooms, and me and my brother had our own room. And I went to the assembly with them, and I listened, and I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense. And they were talking about, you know, how the Bible says it doesn't talk about going to heaven, but actually talk about paradise earth and all this. So I was like, I want to see my mom, you know, and this sounds like it's true. So I asked my brother if he would start studying with me. And that didn't last very long because he was taking too long. And I kind of wanted to hurry up and get through it. Because like another uncle too, the youngest of the kids, he came up there. He's disfellowshipped. But he moved up there, and he and my grandma and me and my brother would go eat after the meetings. And my grandfather wouldn't because he didn't want to eat with my uncle, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So he would drop us off and leave, and we would eat. And all the time, he's constantly talking about, yeah, this is the end. You know, the end is coming, and you know, and talking about how I'll see my mom and everything. And so I felt like it was an urgency, like I really need to hurry up and get baptized, you know. So my brother was taking too long to study. And so I just read the book myself, the knowledge book. I just read it, you know, and talked to the elders. And I was starting going regularly at this time with my grandparents and brother to the meetings. And, you know, after my mom died, the whole love bombing thing, because everyone heard about it.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so they were super nice to me and my brother. And I, at this time, had a, like, in Ohio, I had an earring and a goatee. So when I went into the hall, that's what I had on. Mm-hmm. And anyway, yeah, so I studied and went to the elders and told them I wanted to be an unbaptized publisher. And this whole time, I'm like, well, I know I can't say I'm gay or nothing because I'm not going to be able to be baptized.
Right.
You know, and because they ask, you know, do you have anything you're hiding or something like that? Are you doing everything you're supposed to or something like that? And I just answered what they wanted to hear. So I became an unbaptized publisher, and then I got baptized in June of 1999. So literally like less than a year from when my mom died, I studied and got baptized.
Wow. So you were what, like 22 then or so, but mm-hmm. What a quick transition. Yeah. You know, that hurry to, so So you were really drawn in, was it by the resurrection doctrine?
Yeah, that was a big part of it. You know, and other things, like at the time, it really did make sense, you know.
Well, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is all I know too. You know, it's my whole life has been Jehovah. You know, even when we weren't going to meetings, my mom or someone would bring up about Jehovah or whatever. So it was like, yeah, this sounds like the truth. You know, I just
Yeah. Well,
stifle who I am.
for all those years, you kind of believed what they taught, or at least went along with it because you didn't want to be one of the outsiders that dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, unfortunately, your mom has died in a tragic accident. And so now you have reason to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses, not to just not die as an outsider, but because you want to live, so that you can see your mom again. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, that makes total sense.
And that was my thinking, was my grandparents, my brother, and my mom are going to be there and I won't be there.
Yeah.
And I want to be there. I want to see my mom again.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, got baptized in June and I became a regular pioneer in January of 2000. Again, things were going pretty good. I got a job with the city. So it was part-time, and then I was working part-time at a movie theater. But like I was doing good. And I got close to this brother and sister, older brother and sister, and the sister was anointed. And they were someone who was like, when I was younger, were always in the hall, because we still went to that same hall in California when we moved up here. It was the same hall my grandparents went to. So I got close to them because they were pioneers, and I would, you know, they invite me to their house for personal study. So I'd go to their house and stuff. And me and a brother ended up getting close. So one day I needed to talk to him about something. Something was bothering me. And so I went out into his car and we were talking, and his wife just comes out and looked at us, and then she went in and just slammed the door. Like she was pissed about something. And he was
That's
like,
weird.
yeah. And he was like, you better go, because I think, you know, she's upset. And I'm not getting it. You know, I thought everything was cool. So she apologized later, but then she just didn't act the same. Like when I would hug her, she wouldn't hug me back. She was just being like, I don't know. And they ended up, now they were in this hall for, like I said, since I was little. They ended up moving to another hall. And I'm just like, is this because of me? You know?
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah. And he's like, no, you know, she's having issues with the elders. They're saying she's not anointed, or they don't believe she's anointed or whatever. And I was like, well, honestly, I don't believe she's anointed by the way she's acting. I didn't do that to him. Like,
she didn't earn that. That's funny.
But she just got really weird. I don't know if it's because I was spending too much time with him. I think that was what it was. So anyway, he was like, yeah, but you can still come over for Bible study, or, you know, and all that. And after me and him would do Bible study, he taught me how to play chess. And so we would usually play chess after, you know. And so I went over, and they had I think it was a Watchtower study. And when we were done, you know, he prays and says, amen. And before I can say anything, she looks at me and says, you can leave now. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Okay. You know, he gives me a hug, and I just went outside. I just start crying. I'm just like, what did I do? You know, I didn't get it. And so I ended up seeing him later at the convention, you know, and I was like, I apologize if I was, you know, hanging out with you too much or whatever. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. It's not your fault, you know. And so I went later, I think later that day or during the convention, I saw her at one of those giant boxes for donations.
Mm-hmm.
She was sitting there and looked right at me, and I looked at her, and so I threw up my hand, like waved, and she just turned and looked the other way. And I was like, wow, okay, whatever,
Wow.
you know. So it's like I didn't get like that much anger she was holding on to or whatever. And so I was kind of like pioneering by myself. People that would usually go out were just sisters, and of course they would stay out for like an hour and decide, oh, that's enough, we're gonna go do something else, or we're gonna go do return visits. And I wasn't invited or nothing. It was just like, we'll see later.
I remember that being in that position as a brother and a pioneer. Yeah. Sisters wanted to go do their own things. You got left out.
Yeah, exactly. So
did you ever find out why she was acting that way toward you?
No, like I said, I did find out that she does have mental problems. I think it just came down to that I was just hanging out with him too much, is what it was. And it's like, it's all good. It's whatever, you know?
Wow. I'm so sorry, because, you know, it sounds like you had a friend there that you really kind of bonded with.
It was like a dad I never had, is how he was to me. Yeah. So I pioneered from January 2000. At this time, me and my brother went with some sisters, like older sisters. They were going to Bethel. So we went up to Bethel, and I loved it. It was like, oh, this is where God's Spirit is at, you know. So I came back. It was like my goal was going to Bethel, you know. I put in my application and, you know, pioneering and stuff. And so they asked me to give a prayer. The brother was like, give me a pioneer prayer, opening prayer. I've never given a prayer this entire time in front of a congregation. Oh. And I didn't know what to say. I was like, something like, thank you, Jehovah, for this day of life. And, you know, so really weird, probably like 5-second prayer, amen. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm ready to go to Bethel. You know, it just killed I just was like, yeah, I'm not spiritual enough to go to Bethel. So I withdrew my application. But they wanted me to be a ministerial servant, and I just didn't feel ready for it.
Yeah.
Mostly because I still had anxiety about being in front of people and talking and like commenting. All of that was still really hard for me. Going to service.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Really hard for me.
You were a pioneer. How did you do that? I mean, with the anxiety socially and such that you had.
Depending on Jehovah.
Gotcha.
Holy Spirit.
Holy Spirit was getting you through. Okay.
I honestly was like, you know, I got to do this because it's people's lives. And
yeah,
I just thought in Jehovah's Holy Spirit to help me through it. And I mean, like I said, I hated pioneer. Like, I thought it would make me more, you know how they say it'll make you more outgoing or help you with your shyness. And
yeah.
It doesn't.
It doesn't, does it?
I hated it. I hated it. I would write letters by myself and try to do that for time and all, but it became where it was just a chore.
And what about talks at the meeting? Because if you were wanting to be a ministerial servant, you must have been giving talks, right?
They wanted me to be a ministerial servant. I didn't want to be one.
Oh, I'm sorry. But if they wanted you to be one, if they were even bringing that up, you must have been giving talks and stuff, though, right?
I was just doing the regular, like, Bible reading.
Gotcha. And did you hate that too?
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that would be like, you know, feeling the way you felt to have to get up in front of the congregation. That's why it kind of, it always kind of bothers me when people say, well, The one thing I did get out of the organization was, they forced me to be a public speaker, and that's a good thing. But for a lot of people, it's not a good thing to be forced into that situation, because it really does hurt them. If they have social anxiety or whatever the case may be. I knew brothers who go throw up in the bathroom before they had to give a talk. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
I just was imagining it must have been really hard on you.
Yeah. And I knew being a ministerial servant would be more work and more upfront talking. And that's what I didn't want to do.
Yep.
I didn't want to do that. And so I told him I just didn't feel ready. Of course, he's like, well, that's the whole purpose, we're going to help you be ready. And all. It's like, I'm just not ready right now.
Which just shows they don't really care who you are. They're just pushing a role on you and hoping you'll take it so that you'll do what they want you to do. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I pioneered for a year, but because it was from January until the following January, I didn't do the pioneer school. But I was just kind of over it. I didn't want to keep doing it. So I got off the pioneer list, and they ended up having a class for ASL. And I always wanted to learn ASL, so I'm like, I'll sign up for that. So I signed up for the ASL class and ended up going to the ASL congregation. And I liked it. I met friends there. I loved the congregation. Like, it was good. So I did that for about a year, and I ended up. Well, I had another friend who's a witness, and his sister and him and me and her friend would hang out, and so her friend I had fun with, like, we would laugh and nod and stuff like this. So I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to have to find someone if I don't want to be by myself. And I figured, I'm never going to, be with a man, so I might as well be with a woman. And that was a bad thought. But I thought that I could learn to be straight. So they gave this example of a person who was transgender, who went from a boy to a girl, and then they learned the truth and they ended up going back to a boy. And so I'm thinking, and I also, this whole time I would pray to Jehovah, to get rid of the desires I had. And it's like, this is someone I enjoy being with and I have fun with, and I can see myself like losing those desires and being single. I mean, I'm sorry, straight, and being married.
First of all, I've got to say I've never heard that transgender story that you referred to. I didn't know that they had said that. Good grief!
That's what someone said at an assembly.
Okay, at an assembly. Okay. So much of what they say on those parts is just pure bullshit. It really is.
I'm learning that now.
They made up so many stories to put on there. Oh goodness. Anyway, it's just because they've got to have a story to be encouraging to people or whatever.
Right.
So basically, born out of that story, you're feeling like, well, I feel a certain way, but I guess I can deny that, and maybe I'll lose that if I, just be straight, because that's what they're telling me is the only way that I can have any kind of a relationship.
Right.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Man, that's so unfair. Okay.
Yeah. So, she was also 17. So I waited because I was like 20 something, 23. But I waited till she turned 18, and so I was like 24 at this time, and asked her to date. So we went out and dated, and we ended up getting married that same year. No, she turned 18 in November, we ended up getting married in 2003 of August.
Mm-hmm.
And after I proposed and we were engaged, I knew I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And she later to find out that she felt the same way, but we both felt we were kind of in it. So we had to stay with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because even just getting engaged, they'll talk about how they view that, Jehovah views that as marriage. And so
Yep.
you've made this promise and you've got to follow through now. You're stuck. Yep. That's what they're telling you.
Neither of us want to look bad too,
Yeah.
She didn't want to look like, well, she broke it off and looked bad on her part, or I broke it off and looked bad on my part in the congregation. So unfortunately we ended up going through with it. And we had a study. They studied the family book with us.
Mm-hmm.
This brother and sister elder who she looked to as her parents. And at the last study, I remember going, I can't say that I want to leave, but I asked them, I was like, I have issues with physical touch and all. And I was like, sex and all, I'm kind of very nervous about it. And I was like, is this something I should probably wait, as far as marriage? And they're like, no, once you start, you'll be fine. You're just not used to it yet. So I'm like, okay.
Oh boy.
Take that as it is.
What a weird conversation to have with two, with this random J-Dub couple.
Yeah. And so we end up getting married and go to Disney World for a honeymoon, Florida, Disney World, and other parts there, whatever. And by the end of the honeymoon, we're arguing already. So we fly back to California, and we're still in the ASL congregation. And after a couple of months, I went to help. There was a congregation in Oregon, back in Oregon, just a different city. And they had a ASL group. So we were thinking of going down and help them, which was a very bad idea, being how we're already arguing. Let's go to where we don't know anybody and, newly married.
And it's only us. Yes.
Yeah. So we go down there and, we're helping a group and they're using me like for the cameras and everything. And I meet a friend that I get close to. But our marriage is just bad. Like they had a circuit overseer and we got there like kind of late and we were literally in a car arguing the whole time. It was like that. It was bad. So we're there, and we come back and visit our friends and stuff, family. And also my brother by this time, he also got married. So we come back, visit, my family and all. And I came up because I got a job finally, and we've been there like maybe 6 months, and I found a job that was gonna make us stay for good because it was a really good paying job. And I came back to go with my friend to Vegas as a last little because I won't see him for a while, and she told me, my wife at the time told me it was fine. So I drive up here, and me and him go to Vegas, and then I drop him off and come back down, drive back down to Oregon. And as I'm heading to Oregon, driving on the freeway, I just break down and start crying. Like I'm shaking, I'm crying, and it's like I don't want to go back to Oregon. I call my wife up, and she just hears me just sobbing, and she's like, pull over, because I'm driving fast down the freeway crying. And I'm just telling her I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, So I finally make it home after calming down, and she's like, you know, we just got to move back to California. She's like, because you're not happy here. You know, we just got to move back because I think that's where you want to be at. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. So we end up moving back. After 7 months in Oregon, we end up moving back to California. And it continued, our marriage continued to go bad. We went back to the English congregation because we're in the ASL group, like I said. And we went back to the English when we got back here. And so we went to the hall that I basically grew up in. And they have a new brother who's the presiding overseer, brother, just say brother H, and his wife. So he's this brother that people either really love or really hate. Mm-hmm. And so him and his wife, you know, we're telling them the problems we're having. And so they study with us. And of course, everything's my fault. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm the head. I'm not studying enough. I'm not praying enough. You know, all this stuff. It's still.
Oh yeah, as head of the house, it's your fault, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
Right. You're the spiritual head. So if you all aren't happy, it's you.
Yep. And it's still a big problem with our marriage was the fact that I wasn't physical with her as much as she wanted. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it was just bad. And finally you know, we're studying and everything, and this brother is just I just don't like him. Like I couldn't go on service because my job that I come back to the city where I left. I came back and they hired me back. And so my schedule won't allow me to go on service when everyone else goes on service. So I would go on service on Mondays with one of the deaf brothers from the ASL congregation. And me and him would go out and do street witnessing for like an hour. Mm-hmm. Well, this brother found out and he's like, if you can't support our congregation, then go back to ASL.
Oh, they're such douchebags. Yeah. like they're like, it's like you're doing the right thing and you're doing it the only way you can do it because this is the only way you can do it with your schedule, that you can't just, you know, change. And it's not enough because it's not with these people that you're in the congregation with. You're doing it with a different congregation. Like, why would that matter?
Exactly. And I even said I could be doing a whole lot worse stuff. Yeah. You know? And I'm going out in service and you're honestly counseling me for this, you know? Yeah. So anyway, so I was like, whatever. I tell the brother I can't go on service with him anymore.
Just say that again. I tell the brother I can't go out in service with him anymore. Like, how ridiculous is that to have to say as one of Jehovah's Witnesses? That's so absurd.
Yeah. So my depression starts up again. I don't know. And by this time, we're married for about 5 years. And we get into it was always a big argument, but we get into a really big argument where she came from work. I don't even remember what the argument was about, but she came from work and it was, you know, constant arguing. I have to get up at 3 a.m. because I start work at 4. So I just go to bed and she comes in and she starts banging on the bed, like near my face, I guess trying to get me to hit her or something or whatever, rile me up. And is just yelling and, you know, I don't know. And I'm just ignoring her, you know, I'm just ignoring her. So she's like, fine, I'm going to go kill myself, you know. And she goes into the bathroom and comes out with pills and throws the pills in her mouth. And I'm just like, whatever, you know, I don't care. And then I start thinking about it and I end up calling 911, you know. And by this time she's in the bathroom throwing up the pills because she didn't really want to take them.
Oh,
But
God.
I call 911. They come, and it's this big thing, and people in the apartments, are seeing all this. Everyone's standing. I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm over it. So she comes back from the hospital the next day, and I was just like, I had enough. We need to separate because this is just gonna get really bad, And so I told the elders, we talked to the elders, and so I ended up moving out, finding an apartment. And it's just like, in the congregations, they take sides.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know what's going on in our house, and yet people take sides. And I got a lot of brothers who's, being more supportive to me, and she has a lot of sisters being more supportive towards her. That lady who's anointed even called her up and said she was sorry to hear about us separating. Not call me up.
Well, of course.
Because I called her up, out of nowhere. But it's just like, whatever. So it got bad. And so I moved into my own place, like I said. And I'm just depressed out of my mind. I feel lonely. I don't feel like I can talk to anyone. And so one night I just kind of had enough. Like, I was just like over it. Work was kind of another story. That was a challenge. And so I ended up just taking the meds that I had, and I was just like, I prayed. I remember praying, and I was like saying, I'm sorry to Jehovah. And I was like, I hope you forgive me. And I hope, if you do forgive me, I'll wake up in a paradise. So I took the pills, and I just laid down in bed and went to sleep. And when I wake up, I'm in the hospital. I have no recollection of anything. And the nurse was just like, oh, your friends just left. And I was like, so I have no idea how long I've been there, nothing. So they let me out of the hospital after a few hours or the next day. I can't remember. But my friend who, his sister and my ex were close.
Mm-hmm.
He was telling me what happened. And he said, no, I'm sorry. My ex-wife actually came and picked me up. That's what it was. She came to pick me up. And so I'm like still out of it. And I have black stuff all over me. I guess they gave me charcoal or something to clean me out.
Okay, yeah.
And so she's telling me what happened. And I guess somehow I called my friend in Oregon, and he heard how I sounded weird. And he called her and told her to call the police because he thinks I did something bad. And she called my friend to come, and he came because I guess she was busy doing something and couldn't get away. He comes, and he's like, yeah, you're just rambling on. The ambulance and cops were there. They took you out, and so I didn't have a recollection of what happened, but this is what they told me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm like, oh, maybe, Jehovah was looking out for me. Maybe, whatever. So I get a call from Brother H, and he's like, because my ex called him. And he's like, oh, I want to come visit you and see that you're okay or whatever. And I'm talking to my brother and all this. And so the next day he comes with another brother. And I'm thinking, oh, they're going to come check on me, see how I'm doing. He comes in, I can't remember him praying or nothing. He asked me what happened, and I told him what I did and why I did it. And the first thing out of his mouth is, well, why don't you just admit that you missed your wife and that's why you did it? And I was just kind of like, are you serious? I was like, it had nothing to do with my wife. I was like, I felt like I messed up in Jehovah's eyes. I felt like, yeah, I messed up with my marriage. I was like, but this has nothing to do with trying to get attention or my ex or nothing, or my wife at the time.
Right.
And it was just like, he didn't open a Bible. He didn't share scripture. He didn't say anything. It was...
He just took a swipe at you.
Yeah, yeah.
While you were vulnerable.
And so, of course, after that, you know, I forgot what else was talked about, but he's like, "Well, we hope you come back to the meetings and all." And I just shook my head. I was like, "I'm not going back to the meetings where you're at," you know. And so he just like kind of like gave a surprise look, but and they ended up leaving, and I was just like, that just made me feel even worse, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like now I felt like I'm just like I have no one, I have no meeting to go to because I'm not going back there. And I was just back into this place where depression was just overtaking me, and I felt like I just wish I died. I was like, why did I, survive this? So that happened, and so I ended up going to a different meeting, and I didn't really like it, but I was going to try to, get myself together. My ex ended up moving in with a friend and her husband. And so we were talking to try to work stuff out. My ex, we went to counseling to try to work stuff out. And so probably 4 or 5 months later, we were talking about getting back together. And then she's like, well, I have to talk to the elders first. And I'm like, why do you have to talk to the elders? And first she didn't say nothing. And then I'm like, what? Did you do something? And then she admitted that she kind of messed around with someone at her friend's house. Her friend's husband's friend that I guess came over there. And I'm just like, really? Okay. So she's like, I have to talk to the elders and see what they say and all this. So she talked to the elders, and I guess they told her it was pornea, and that she would, and that I had a cause for divorce. They didn't tell me this, and this elder, brother age, no one elder ever called me and told me anything. She calls me and told me this, that they said that you have a reason for divorce. And I'm like, okay, and I know deep down that's what I wanted.
Right.
But I was still scared to, go ahead with it. And my friend, I talked to him about it, and he's like, if you don't get a divorce, then you're really stupid. He's like, you guys don't belong together. This is your way out of it. You need to do it. And so, yeah, I filed for divorce, and was done with it. I ended up going to the Kingdom Hall where my brother was at and his wife, but she's not a witness, but they go to this other hall. And things were starting to get back to normal. Things were actually good. And so then they had a thing where you can serve where the need is great. And so it was in South Dakota. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like something I like to do. So I ended up going, and it was about 4 or 5 brothers that went, and then another family. And this is where I met my friend Cease. I'll just say Cease. And me and him became close, and just things were going good. I was up to where they had me doing the sound and the literature department, and I was doing good with the talks. I mean, service was like, but I was fine. Everything was back to being good. And yeah, I was doing all right. And it still, though, was the fact that that's what it was. I'm sorry. It still is the fact that I knew deep down I'd never ever get to be with anyone. Because I actually had other females ask me out, and I started just saying that I made a thing with Jehovah to where I wanted to get myself in order and become a better Jehovah's Witness. to just try to have them back off.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
a lot
wasn't
of
like a lot
pressure.
of girls.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of girls. It was like one or two, but I would just like, yeah, and I did. I like prayed to it so I could be telling the truth. And I'm like, I will. I just want to get myself right with Jehovah first, so I wouldn't have to date anyone or anything because I want to get into that again. So I was still doing good, and then C's ended up leaving for whatever reason. He just stopped going to meetings, and we were still hanging out, but he wasn't going to meetings, and I started just getting this, like I was just like there, but not really focusing, the mentally out, physically in. I was just basically going through the motions, and
it was just confusing because, here now your friend has left, and you know you can't have a relationship with anyone again, really, and like it seems like another kind of abandonment, like another time where you thought you had somebody and then something changes again, right?
Right. And also at this time, I totally missed, but that's also between my ex and that whole situation. My grandfather died in a car accident. I totally forgot about that.
Oh no, a car accident as well? Wow.
A car accident. Yep. And then later on, my grandmother ended up moving back to Ohio to be around her family our family, but because, she didn't have my grandfather. And so she ended up dying a couple of years later. So it was like I didn't really have anyone that I had to worry about as far as feeling like I'm letting them down by not going to meetings.
Right.
Except my brother. And even he was kind of like hit and miss.
Right.
So I was just basically going through the motions, and I was making all the meetings except Thursday because I still had this schedule where I had to get up at 3, and I was just ended up going to bed at like 4 or 5 because I was just tired. And a lot of people would go on about, why aren't you making a Thursday meeting? And it's like, I work and I'm just, I'm tired. I don't really feel like it. And it just got it to where it was just nagging. It was like they're nagging, you should be at every meeting. You're missing the meeting and all. So then one Sunday I go to the meeting, and our meeting was at like 1:00. So I got there at 12:30, and none of my congregation was there, but a different congregation was there. So I saw this guy that I know, and I was like, hey, where's our congregation at? And what happened? And he's like, oh, your congregation was moved to 3:00. And I was like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah. I was like, well, no one told me, and I have a couple of people in there, friends who you think would tell me. And he was like, well, you should have been at the meeting. And I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. So I go home and I call up one of my friends. I was like, hey, they changed the meeting time? And he's like, yeah, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I should have told you, but you should have been at the meeting. I'm just like, okay, so I get where this is going. So that day I didn't go back to the 3:00. I just stayed home, and I just started looking up videos on why people left Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, I wouldn't watch any apostate videos, but just people's stories because I felt they weren't apostates for some reason.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would watch their videos, and a lot of things they're saying were making sense and was like, I could relate to. And then I slowly just started missing meetings. Like, every day I would be watching videos, and so just brother who also knew me since I was younger. He's Nigerian, and he was like asking me what was wrong, why was I missing so many meetings, and I just was like, I don't know. I couldn't really answer him. And he's like, well, you can't straddle the fence. If either give your all to Jehovah or give your all to the world, you know. And it actually made sense to me. I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. It's like I'm kind of missing out if, one way or the other.
Right.
And seeing too, like my friends started dating and just seeing other people date, and getting married and all this. And it was just like, I'm never going to have that. I'm going to be a witness for the rest of my life, but never be able to be married and never be able to be happy with someone. So I still didn't totally leave, but I was missing a lot, and continued watching the YouTube videos. And then I started listening to your podcast, the JW Life, and
yeah, this JW Life, I hear there's an apostate on there.
Is there?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Watch out for that one.
The Lloyd Evans is the one who I refused to watch because he just straight up was apostate to me.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna watch him.
Yeah, we all draw our lines.
But so I ended up just stopped going altogether. And I was like, yeah, I want to be happy. And I'm sorry, well, what made me stop is because I started seeing in these stories and different things, people would bring up stuff like the Royal Commission.
Yep.
And, I figured, every religion has that issue. But when I saw how witnesses were literally paying to not release that information, yep. I was just like, are you serious? And then they were in cahoots with the UN or with the United Nations. And I would just look up, after I heard, I would look it up and see that it's true. And I'm just like, oh, they just seem like they're just no different than any other religion. It's like they're lying or they're not being honest with people. So I got to where I just, finally, I think I ended up watching Lloyd Evans and, what he says and the way he goes through things. And it was like, this makes a lot of sense, and I got depressed again because it's like everything I known is like, it wasn't true. And now I'm never going to see my mom again or my grandparents or anything. But it's like, okay, well, that means I can at least live what little life I have,
Yep.
So I started talking to this apostate who's been helping me. What's his name?
I know what you're talking about. I know nothing about this.
Anyway, going through, you're helping me and life coaching me, and that's when I finally admitted to being gay, like out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I need to tell, my friends and brother-in-law, because I just wanted to start living life. I felt like life was I already missed a lot of it,
Yeah.
And
it's a big deal to be authentic and to say, this is who I am, right? And let's face it, I mean, my name is Mike. I'm a heterosexual, but it doesn't mean that being heterosexual dominates every aspect of my life. Like, that's not everything that I am. Your name is Ramil and you are gay, and that's great, right? Like, but it's just part of who you are. It's not everything, but it's like this part of your authentic self that they tried to shame that you get to try to own. You get to take that back. And
exactly.
Does it feel pretty good to do something like that?
Feels great. I told overseas first, and I was scared. But I mean, we've been friends for at this time. It's been 8 years. It's like he knows me, you know, and of course he's like, "You're still my friend," and he's like, "I'll help you in any way you can," you know. And so that was like the biggest relief, like, off my shoulders. And so then I told my ex, because I felt like I owed it to her to tell her. And we, even after divorce, still talked. We were actually somewhat cool with each other.
Sure.
But I felt like I owed it to her, so she understood what was happening. And again, just very supportive. You know, of course, she's like, "Well, I figured." It's like, okay, whatever. But she was supportive and cool about it. And so then I guess the one I was most scared of was my brother, because he's still a witness. And I ended up telling him, and at first he thought I was joking. He's like, "Yeah, right," you know. And I just started talking about when I was young and how I was scared to tell people and all this. And, you know, I was like, "I understand if, you know, you feel like you can't talk to me anymore or whatever." And I mean, this is why I feel so fortunate, because he's like, "You're still my brother and I love you. You know, if that's, you know, how you are, I accept that." And he's like, "I'm not going to let anyone tell me I can't talk to you." So the people that I really cared to know knows. And, you know, it's not, I mean, well, I'm telling it out now to people, I guess. But it's like, I mean, it's like such a relief. It was just like, I know that's a big part of my depression.
Yep.
I mean, and I couldn't be myself. And so now, yeah, I mean, things are, you know, I still have my depressed moments and all, but things are a lot better. And I'm trying to work on myself, and still, you know, thanks to you, working with you, and you're helping me a lot get through things. So things are going pretty good right now.
That's awesome. You know, you were talking about, you know, how you were afraid to tell people that you were gay, and it made me think of the quote. I think it's actually like a Dr. Seuss quote or something, but it says, "Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind." And it really is true. You know, in this life, you got to live and be authentic. It's, I think a lot of the depression in this world, just in general, is caused by people living lives that really aren't in harmony with who they are, trying to be things they're not. And,
Right.
You know, it's hard for us all to figure out who we are at times. I'm glad you're, you know, figuring those things out, and that you get to actually be yourself, and that's okay, you know. And like that quote says, "Those who matter won't mind," you know. And if somebody does mind, well, that shows something about them, and how much they should really matter in the grand scheme of things in your life. So I'm just happy for you that you actually get to be you. It's a path, certainly. And I know, because I've talked to you. I mean, you've already said, you know, obviously we work together as in my coaching practice, but I'm just really happy, you know, that you felt comfortable enough to, you know, let me know that you were gay, and then to, you know, take the steps to let other people know. I mean, that's, was it courage is not the absence of fear, but feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And like that's huge, for you to do that. And I'm just honored to be any part of it. That's awesome. I appreciate you, trusting me enough to do that. And, yeah, I'm glad that you're sharing your story today, because I know this is hard for you. I know it's not easy to get on a podcast or a microphone and spill your guts and tell your story, you know, to other people out there. But by doing so, now you get to help other people, like other people's stories have helped you. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, let me ask you. So today, what do you have in your new life that you enjoy? And is there anything that you are particularly looking forward to in the future?
I'm looking forward to having a boyfriend.
He's single.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I don't have to hide who I am,
Yeah.
like you say, I can be my authentic self.
Yeah.
Um, and like, I'm still not into that as far as celebrating Christmas or, holidays like that. I'm not against it. It's just like, it's something I've never had, so I don't feel like I'm really missing anything.
Yeah, you have no
But
connection to it.
right. But I do like birthdays. I love celebrating birthdays and sending people gifts or, wishing them a happy birthday. That's like, it just makes me feel good to do that. So it's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else that you're looking forward to? Coronavirus being over.
Oh yeah.
So you can get back out. Yeah.
Just like, yeah, meeting new friends, people, I really want to work on myself more as far as try to explore what other things I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I am very scared of going to school because I'm not very good at being in a crowded place or speaking up or learning. I'm not very good at learning or retaining information, but I also want to try as far as learning another language or, looking into photography more.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, exploring. And yeah, I want to skydive and things that we weren't allowed to do as witnesses,
Yeah.
and travel other places without having to go to a meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just so happy for you, Ramil. I mean, now you get to live, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
and don't sell yourself short. You're an intelligent guy. You can retain information and stuff. I'm sure. It's just you have to find something that's actually worth retaining. When you think about it, so much of our lives, and I sincerely mean this. When so much of our lives as Jehovah's Witnesses was spent in situations where we are expected to retain information that we didn't care about at all.
Right.
And then sometimes school was, the same way, or we had other issues in school that made it hard to be present mentally and emotionally, or other things going on in our lives. You had so much going on in the background. You never know what is possible until you try. And I think that's the beautiful part about your life is now you get to try different things and actually live and find what fits you. And if something doesn't fit you, that's okay too. But that's how you find out is by getting out there and experimenting and trying things. So good for you for being courageous enough to do so.
Thank you.
All right, man. Well, any parting shots, anything you'd like to leave anybody with out there, or something that I didn't ask you that you'd like to respond to?
If you want to be a Jehovah's Witness or you're thinking about it, I mean, I know a lot of people say it, but you really have to do your research.
Yeah.
I mean, not just their website, but you just do as much research as possible. Because you're honestly you're signing a contract that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, and I don't know anyone who wants to be stuck in a contract for the rest of their lives. So I would just seriously do research and really think about it if that's something a person is thinking about. And also if you're in a situation where you are gay and you're, still in the closet. I mean, I know everyone's situation is different and is something that may take time for people to come out, but as soon as you do, you're going to feel great. I mean, to be able to be yourself is probably like the greatest feeling. So I hope, people who are in that situation will have the courage to or when they can be able to come out and live their lives like they want to, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a great place to end it. It's all about, I mean, kind of one of the themes of this episode, I think, has been about, being authentic, that goal of finding your authentic self and being who you are, and what happens when you're not being who you are, and some of the ways that can, negatively impact you mentally and emotionally. So, it's a beautiful thing to see people, whatever their identity is, whether it's sexually or any other way, be who you are. You've only got this one life that we know of, so we might as well make the most of it, right?
Right, exactly.
As always, I want to thank everybody that's brave enough to get on here and tell their story, so that they can help those that listen. And I hope that in listening back to it, you get a different perspective and can give a little more weight to what you experienced, and find some more healing. If you're listening, you can support today's guest by leaving a comment of support on the website at shunnedpodcast.com on the episodes page. While there, you can find the date for the next Shunned Recovery Project online meetup, reach out for one-on-one coaching to get moving on your new life, or buy some merch and rep the show. Visit my other site, ex-JWhelp.com, for helpful videos and a downloadable roadmap of life after leaving, as well as resources like meetups, books, and a lot more. Join the Facebook support group called Shunned Podcast. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more as Shunned Podcast. Leave a review on iTunes or other podcast apps for both this and the original podcast, This JW Life, so that more people can find these stories and get the help that they need. Donating equals loving. So if you love these stories and find them helpful, please support the show at patreon.com/shunned. And there's some rewards there, and it really means a lot to me to see that people support what I'm doing, and it helps me to do more. The theme song for today is No Hell Yet by Fair Voyeur. And as I end all episodes, love others, do no harm, and go be happy.